Hi!
Welcome to our vlog! And for today's video, we will be discussing about the law and obligations and contracts.
Chapter 1. General Provisions. Article 1156 states that an obligation is a juridical necessity to give, to do, or not to do.
A juridical necessity essentially just means that in case of non-compliance, the aggrieved party can call upon the Court of Justice to enforce the fulfillment, or in case of default, the economic value that it represents.
Essentially, there are four requisites of an obligation. The first one being the passive subject, also known as the debtor or the obliger. It is the one who has duty.
The second one is the active subject, which is also called as the creditor or the obliger. It refers to the person who has the right.
The third one is the prestation, or also called as an object. This refers to the subject matter of the obligation.
The fourth one is the juridical or legal tie. It is also called the efficient cause. It is the thing that binds or connects the parties to the obligation.
There are two types of obligations. Real obligation, which is an obligation to give, and personal obligation, which can either be negative or positive. Negative personal obligation is an obligation not to do, whereas positive personal obligation is an obligation to do. It is important to know that there is no negative real obligation.
Article 1157 expressly states that civil obligations exclusively arise from number 1, law, number 2, contracts, number 3, quasi-contracts, number 4, acts or omissions punished by law, and number 5, quasi-delics.
The first source of obligation is the law. It is when the obligation arises from the law itself.
The second source of obligations is contracts. It is when the stipulation arises from the two parties.
The third source of obligations are the quasi-contracts. Quasi-contracts arise from lawful, voluntary, and unilateral acts that are enforceable to the end that no one shall be unjustly enriched or benefited at the expense of another.
So the fourth source of obligations are crimes or acts or omissions punished by law. It is when they arise from civil liability, which is a consequence of criminal offense.
Lastly is quasi-delict or tort. It is when an obligation arises from damages caused by another through acts of omission, there being fault or negligence, but no contractual relationship exists between the parties.
Wala, sobrang sukli. Sobrang
That was an example of solution indemnity under quasi-contract. Because solution indemnity is a juridical relation which is created when something is delivered through a mistake.
That situation was an example of negotiarium gesture under quasi-contract. Negotiarium gesture is the voluntary management of someone's affair or property without the knowledge or consent of the latter. In this situation, although Pan did not give consent, Mikey voluntarily took care of his phone while Pan was away in his class.
In crime, there is malicious intent and criminal negligence, whereas in quasi-delict, there is just negligence. So if I purposely damage this car, it is considered a crime or a delict. Whereas if I accidentally damage the car, I only have quasi-delict.
In crime, the purpose is punishment, and in quasi-delict, the purpose is indemnification of the offended parties. Moreover, crime affects public interests, whereas quasi-delict affects only private interests.
In crime, there are generally two liabilities. These are the criminal liability and the civil liability, while in quasi-delict, there is only civil liability. Furthermore, criminal liability cannot be compromised or settled by the parties themselves, while the liability for quasi-delict can be compromised as any other civil liability. In crime, the guilt of the accused must be proved beyond reasonable doubt, while in quasi-delict, the fault or negligence of the defendant need only be proved by preponderance of evidence.